I didn't straighten my hair. The hairdresser straightened my hair. I can't do it myself. There's too much.
You're like this.
I mean, like, the hairdresser has to go for a break halfway through. She just needs to sit down. She's like, there's so much hair. Anyway.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Blether with. You've just caught us talking hair. All of Kat's, none of mine. I have to add. And welcome along. As always, let us know what is in your glass. We've got the YouTubers of the Keen Beans tonight. We've got Dave, Pete, Dominic, all jumping on with the chat. Good evening to you all. Dave Harrison has got the 14-year-old Glenallachie from a rare find.
Is that the football one? No,
the football one was it a blend? I think they released the SFA release. Okay. Can't remember. They released it for the Germany game. But no, this is a single cask Glenallachie. So of course we had Gregor on a couple of weeks ago and chatting all about that. I've got some fantastic Ram support tonight, courtesy of our guest. Unfortunately, Kat is so busy she didn't get the chance to pick hers up.
Stupid cooker broke down and has wasted my whole day. I should have just made the kids go hungry and come and got the whiskey instead.
God. We've got Dominic is on the Ardbeg Spectacular. Let us know just how spectacular it is. I still have my sample from you, Dominic. It's sitting in my kitchen waiting to be devoured. And Ed Friday has got a living blend in the glass. Is that your own blend? You say my living blend. Is that your own kind of infinity bottle style bottle you have there, Ed? Well, I'm kind of on brand. I'm going to wait until a wee bit later to start the two gifts that we've got. I'm going to pour it is a Diageo Distillery, the Teenich, but it's an independent 13-year-old in a port cask.
The one I can't see. I just cannot say the name of that distillery at all. There's so many consonants in there.
I always call it Teenich, but I might be corrected tonight. Who knows? What's in your glass, Kat?
I have got a Manach Moor. Hang on. And it's an independent one as well. So we've got that one from Carmore.
Right.
It's a bourbon hogshead. It's 11 years old, and I'm really, really keen to try it because it sounds amazing. I was reading about Manach Moor, and a lot of their distillation sounds similar to another distillery I know. They've got like clear wort, long fermentation, really ester forward, new make spirit. So, and it's in a bourbon cask. This sounds like my sort of dram. So I'm excited about opening this one up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, let's without further ado, let's get our guest on. Let's get Ewan on and let's get chatting. That's first thing I'm going to ask him is, am I pronouncing Teenich right?
Hi guys. I hope you are, because that's how I say it.
We'll go with it.
Hi.
Welcome along. Thank you very much for giving up your Thursday night to talk whiskey.
Thank you for inviting me. It's good to be on.
We're excited to have you. I think I've been chasing you down for months now because you're a very, very busy man.
Yeah, apologies. Had to keep moving dates a few times. Sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry, because you've had a lot of exciting things happening as well. So, totally understandable. And I didn't want to be rude either and be like, hello, come on, could you just come on the Blether?
It would have been fair.
Just get it over with. Just come on and it's done.
It's a rite of passage if you're in the whiskey world. You've got to come on and talk nonsense with us for an hour.
I think that seems fair.
Absolutely. We're just a couple of hellos to the guys at home. Big Pour, Max Starr, Scott Matheson, and Rick Johnson. Good evening to you all. As always, let us know what is in your glass. Rick, we'll ask you in about an hour's time when it turns midday in San Francisco. But thanks again, as always, for joining us. Ewan, what's in your glass tonight?
I've got two glasses lined up. The one I've got poured right now is a Prima Ultima Port Ellen from 1980. So that's from the third collection of Prima Ultima that we launched a couple of years ago now. But I've still got a wee bit left, so it's quite a tasty dram to enjoy.
And that is one that we got sent courtesy of Ewan.
Look at that. That's amazing. We're not calling that an old whiskey, though. I'm a 1980s baby, so we're not calling that an old whiskey. We're calling that a well-aged whiskey.
Yeah. For those who know Annette in the shop, this is her year.
Oh, no way.
So she did say if you weren't wanting yours, she would have it.
That's not happening. That is, I mean, I love her and everything, but it's not happening.
This will be my first ever Port Ellen. So
amazing.
I've never had Port Ellen either. It's very exciting.
It's a good one to start with. That was the last 2 casks of 1980 Port Ellen we had in our warehouse that were used to make that one. So it's the last time you'll get a 1980 Port Ellen from us, certainly.
Wow. That's awesome. That's like very kind for sharing that. That's absolutely awesome. That's not the reason we asked you on.
You see, you know.
And it's older than me. It's just.
I wish I could say the same.
It's not often. I think that's something that we have to thank the whiskey industry for, is allowing us. There's not many places you get to drink something that has been on the go for longer than you've been alive, depending on your age. Obviously, some of the young pups will be 21-year-old will have a plethora of drinks that they can enjoy. But as you get older, these become more of a rarity. So
I'm finding it harder and harder, to be honest.
Well, what's the oldest whiskey you've got your hands on that you've managed to try?
I did try the G&M Mordlich 70-year-old when it came out. I remember the teardrop bottle shape one. It was a beautiful dram. Apart from that, from us, it would be the 54-year-old Singleton of Duffton. That was pretty spectacular as well. Yeah. Wow. I mean, older doesn't always mean better, as you guys know, but they were both pretty damn good.
I
was thinking. No, go on.
I was going to say, but you say 54. I think the oldest I had, I can't remember exactly how old it was, but it was distilled in 1954. It was a Glen Grant, and it was a Gordon MacPhail as well. I was lucky enough to get up and do a tour with Stephen after we opened the shop in 2015. The following Speyside Festival, because we kind of used Gordon MacPhail as our main supplier. We got an invite up for the opening Cayley, and then the following day we got a tour around the site in Elgin, and it was superb. What a place! Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
You're going to say something, sorry?
I know. I always think with like really old whiskey or old whiskey, it's sometimes when you think back, like, you know, the people that made that, they might not even be with us anymore. You've almost like captured like this kind of moment in time. And there's not many places or things that can do that. It's very, very humbling when you think about it, to be honest. And like what was happening in the world at the time it was distilled, or the history of the stuff. Pretty cool.
The Premium Ultimate collection we do, it's kind of all about that, because it's about this at first and lasts. So, you know, it's always a slice of history. It's a moment in time. You know, we had like cask number 1 from our Thrust Distillery. We had like these last 2 casks. We had the last spirit run from Cragganmore when it was running on coal-fired stills. So, you know, all these kind of moments in time, to your point, you know, so it's quite lovely because you're sipping that knowing it can never be repeated, you know, so yeah.
It's almost as well, though, I mean, is it quite hard to just take that cask out of the warehouse and be like, we're going to bottle this? Because you're like, it's like when you finish your last of your favorite dram, you almost don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's quite a tricky thing, because, you know, you don't want it to go too far either, so the wood starts to dominate and you lose all that sense of place and you lose that distillery character. But you also, you're kind of watching it going, could this go a bit later, you know? And you know, it's quite a weight on the shoulders to know that it might be the last of its kind and you can't ever do it again. But these things, you know, it is good to share them for sure.
Yeah, definitely. That's the quite nice thing about whiskey as well, that finality of that special release, you know, like when it's gone, it's gone. That's why it's kind of, I do see the point. I do see why people want to keep bottles, but at the same time, you know, I like that thing. You know, I like that if you finish that dram, you enjoyed it with pals, that's it. You can't get it anymore. It was just a moment in time. I quite like that. It's quite special.
Yeah. And there'll be something else amazing comes along at some point. So it's
of course. Definitely.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's you know, there's always another option. There's always something else ready to take over, equally as exciting, equally as limited. It might not be the same moment in time, but it's something completely different, you know. So it's a pretty cool industry to be in, and kind of looking at the past as well as, you know, what is the future, what's gonna appear, the reopening of Port Ellen, what is, you know, in 40 years' time, are people going to be raving about the liquid in the same way as we do about whiskey from the 80s?
Yeah, hopefully.
Hope so, yeah. Dominic's just commented on YouTube. He stumbled across the term Blethermen this week, and it's used to describe middlemen or brokers of spirit agents.
There you go. That could, although that can't be our merch, because, like, you know, we have to make it a non-gender term. So Blether them. Blether folks. Blether them. We can't have men on our merch. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn a light on because I look like I'm in a cave. You wouldn't think it's blooming summer solstice. Hang on.
So you and Wildcats
yes.
getting enlightened. What your role, senior brand ambassador? What's a typical day in the life of a senior brand ambassador at Diageo?
It's a good question. I don't know if there is a typical day in the life, to be honest. I mean, I certainly pre-COVID, I was probably overseas about 6 months of the year, and the other 6 months a year here in Scotland. Sort of often looking after folks that come into Scotland from markets around the world. But post-COVID, you know, the discovery of Zoom, that's gone down a bit. I'm probably abroad maybe 3 months of the year now. And the rest of the time here in Scotland. But yeah, the role kind of covers quite a lot of things. I look after all of our sort of education training programs for Scotch Whisky. We have a brilliant course called the Whisky Advocates course. It used to be called the Malt Advocates course. We made it a bit more all-encompassing. So I look after that with one of my colleagues. I do most of our sort of media and PR conversations anytime we're launching new brands or reopening new distilleries, like Port Ellen and Brora over the last few years. A lot of innovation work I get sort of pulled into as well. So I mean, just today I was on a 3-hour workshop with our Asia Pac innovation team. They're based out of Singapore. But yeah, I mean, every day is different. You know, and particularly because we've had quite a lot going on over the last few years. We've had Johnny Walker Princess reopening. We've had Brora. We've had Port Ellen. You know, we do some annual special releases launch. We've got Prima Ultimas coming out. You know, there's been a lot of new news. So we've had a lot of people over in Scotland from markets all over the world. So I've been doing a lot of sort of looking after colleagues and press from all over the world, which has been quite exciting. But yeah, there's no typical day. I mean, every single day is different, which is great.
You've had a lot of big, exciting things. I mean, like there's some big events, to be honest. Reopening distilleries that have been shut since, like,
them off like a daily occurrence as well.
Yeah, it's been quite interesting. I mean, Port Ellen's a great example because it's very fresh in mind. We just did this of opening events a month and a half ago, but you know that was a sort of week-long sort of series of launches and open events and inviting different groups of people. You know, private clients, media. We had a sort of a local day where inviting the people of Ireland to the distillery. But sort of around that, there was various sort of media trips in the couple of weeks before that under embargo. There's a few trips after that. So yeah, there's quite a lot of trips to Ireland prior to that, even when we were sort of designing the brand home experience and what that would look like and the sort of flow and what stories we wanted to tell. So I kind of got involved in quite a lot of that as well. So yeah, you sort of look at the launch and go, okay, that was a few days of big excitement, but there was lots and lots of work going on in the background with people right across the business. So, it's amazing how many people from different parts of the business all pulled together and made it happen. So I'm lucky to have such awesome colleagues as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's quite a lot of responsibility to sort of design an event for like an opening of a distillery. I mean, I guess you've got to, you've got to make it something that people are going to remember. You've got to make it something that makes sense that's a lot of responsibility. Yeah. I'm stressed thinking about it.
I didn't design the event, let's make that clear. But I was involved in the team that pulled it all together for sure. But yeah, there's no sort of one person does that. It involves a lot of people across various different roles in the business. But yeah, it went well though, so that was good.
That's good.
amazing.
I know. I'm desperate to
How
try it.
is the
There you go.
how does the kind of the feedback come from Port Ellen in terms of kind of getting it up and going? Because at the moment it's kind of sitting there as, or up until now, it's kind of been this mythical, magical beast, and very much in the collecting kind of side. People were buying it, 4 or 5 figures sometimes, and really old whiskey. And now we're at that stage where we're going to be looking forward to 3, 4, 5-year-old whiskey coming out. And I'm not sure what the plan is on the releases or whatever. Are you recreating that kind of same flavor, or are you trying to say, look, this is a new whiskey in a new market?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, Port Ellen's quite an interesting one. It's a bit of a sort of rare gem. You look back at its history, and every time I share this number, it blows me away. But it only made whiskey for I think 17 of the last 94 years. So. And that was from 1967 to 1983, and then obviously this year as well. So when we look at the liquids Port Ellen made, certainly in memorable history, we've actually only got a 16-year sort of time slot to look at. And we don't have any new make spirit from that period to compare with what we're doing now. But we're very fortunate, we do still have people in the business who were around when Port Ellen was producing. So we were able to spend a lot of time with them discussing, the processes, the technicalities of how whiskey was made. We also had, we're very fortunate. We've got the biggest spirits archive in the world at Diageo, and it doesn't just cover our Scotch brands. It covers pretty much all of our brands, with the exception of Guinness and a few others who have their own archive. And that's based in Menstrie. And I think they've got something like 250,000 individually archived items, from labels to bottles with liquid to blueprints for distilleries. And they actually had some of the blueprints from Port Ellen from the 60s when it was sort of refurbished. So we're able to go back and look at them and basically design this distillery, certainly the still house, around those blueprints. So it doesn't look the same, but the idea is that it will function the same, or more or less the same, and allow us to create the same style of spirit that was being made back then. So we've got a combination of sort of factual information, but also anecdotal information. We interviewed a lot of the guys on Islay who had worked at the distillery back in the 70s and early 80s. So we're able to pull all that together, along with the knowledge that our sort of science and technology teams and our distillers and blenders have now, to basically map out how we would recreate the spirit of all those years ago. So in theory, we should be able to create a pretty close approximation, if not maybe even something better that was made all those years ago. Now, the beautiful thing as well is, Port Ellen was always quite an experimental distillery. It was quite forward-looking. There's lots of innovation took place there over the years, not just during the most recent period of production, but even going back further. And we wanted to sort of continue in that theme and that sort of that ethos. So when we built the 2 main stills, we also built 2 smaller stills. So they're essentially carbon copies, but a third of the size. And those are stills that we're going to basically do sort of innovation on. We're going to get creative and have a bit of fun with. And, there's lots of things that have been built into the distillery to allow that to happen. We've got a 6-roller mill, for example, which our distillery manager, Ali McDonald, gets very excited about. He's amazing. He oversaw the sort of build and sort of the sort of process of pulling the distillery together, and he's now managing it as well. He sort of played a big role in saying what sort of kit would go into the distillery. So that's 6-roller mill he's very excited about. The other part that's really exciting is we have a 10-part spirit safe. So on those innovation stills, we can actually take really, really precise individual small or wide cuts during that sort of middle cut or that middle run. And we can then select certain of those cuts to blend together, or we can exclude certain small cuts from the production. So it gives us incredible flexibility. And the beauty of having it on those identical but smaller stills is if we do something that we love there, we can then expand it out and run it through the larger stills. So yes, we're going to be creating as close to what we used to make as possible, but we're also allowing for a bit of flexibility and a bit of creativity as well. So it's quite an exciting distillery to go around, because you can just see people's faces light up when they tell you about what they're going to be able to do there. We've got Ali working on that. We've also got our master blender, Amy Morrison. She's incredible. She was on the front cover of Whiskey magazine last month. Between the two of them, I think they've already got about 1,000 experiments mapped out for running through this distillery over the next few years. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement about it. I'm conscious I haven't talked for a very long time. I hope that's interesting to you.
Yeah,
you've got plenty of warehouse space. That sounds like you're going to have a lot of fun playing around with.
Yes.
It sounds a little bit like Glenmorangie. They've got the kind of playground distillery.
Yes, yeah.
For experimenting, so it sounds similar to that. And how cool is that for not just for whiskey geeks, but guys in the industry get the chance to work there and go and play.
Yeah,
for bringing the best of the best over to Ireland. Come to Port Ellen and you can have lots of fun.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds to be a great place for training and learning as well. Is it something you would use as a base for like sort of further development for your team from other sites?
Potentially. I mean, we do have our own lab on site as well, which is quite unusual. When you look at most of our sort of spirit that we send away for analysis, it goes to our labs in Elgin. And actually, we've got our own lab on site, which can look at both the spirit we're creating, but we're actually using it as a lab for Port Ellen maltings as well. So they can sort of do all the analysis on barley on site, which means it can be turned around really, really quickly, rather than a sort of 1 or 2 day period where it has to go to Elgin and then you get the input back. So it's it just speeds up things and again opens up a bit more creativity because you can get immediate sort of answers to your questions about what you're doing. So yeah, they've kind of put lots of things in place to make this a distillery where yes, we can, all being well, make the same kind of spirit as we made all those years ago, but where we can really get creative and have a lot of fun as well.
Yes, it's kind of like sort of the past and the future, but bringing it together is very, very cool. I'll need to come over for a look at it. And you've got an Isla man as your manager as well. Every distillery in Scotland seems to have somebody from Isla in it. They know whiskey.
I think Isla's produced quite a lot of good distillers over the years. So yeah, they do.
Hello, Killian.
Hello.
Coming to press buttons and probably log me off.
Changed it. We don't want Cat's face as large as that. Although, check out the ear.
There we go. Back to.
Did you know that there's a German distillery called St. Killian's?
I don't think I did know that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I took Whiskey Magazine to the hairdressers earlier, and they've got a big section about German distilleries in it. So there's a German distillery called St. Killian.
Wow.
So you're going to have to. I don't know if
the holiday destination.
I'm not sure if they call it Killian or not. You'll have to Google it, but the distillery certainly is called Killian anyway. There you go.
I will have to. So all the stock of Port Ellen, I'm going to have to pour.
Yeah, pour yourself a dram. I'd love to know what you think of it. Its natural cask strength is at 59.6% ABV, which for something distilled in the 80s and only bottled a couple of years ago, that's quite high actually. So it must be.
I had to read that again, and that is a phenomenal strength for a 41 year. You're normally lucky if it holds 40. There's a lot of 41, 42.
I just missed that because I was scooping my tea. How high? What's the strength?
59.6. So it's up there.
Moses, wow.
So these must have been. I think there were some casks back around then. I think there was a bit of shortage of wood in the industry. So I think some casks were being filled more or less straight off the still.
Yeah.
Whereas now we knock it down to usually 63.5 before filling into cask. I think around that period of time, a lot of casks were just filled at full strength, so up around 70. I'm guessing they were probably pretty well made, tight casks essentially. There was one refill American oak hogshead and one ex-sherry European oak butt combined together. So it's quite an interesting one because for me it's a classic Port Ellen. It's got that sort of slightly ashy smoke. It's got nice sort of briny sort of seaweed drying in the sun kind of note, but then there's that sort of underlying fruitiness as well. So it's a lovely, classic expression of Port Ellen, I think.
Yeah, this one, the colour of that is, when you mentioned there's a sherry in there, you'd expect it to be dark, especially after 40 years.
Yeah.
But it's a very light kind of American oak bourbon, what we'd expect from that kind of.
A lot of Port Ellen was filled into refill casks, which is a good thing given that we're now bottling it at 40 plus years old. Because if these were first fill, they would have probably destroyed a lot of that distillery character. They would have dominated it. So it's probably quite a good thing that these probably were sort of second, maybe even third fill casks. So they've been allowed to sort of give that wood influence really gradually and gently over a long period of time, rather than hitting it with a lot of wood very quickly. So yeah, I think it's obviously that not a lot of color has come through. It's quite light in color, but there's a lot of flavor in there.
What was the peat level of the original distillery? Do you know? Because
I think we categorized it as sort of medium peated, so round about the sort of Talisker level. I can't remember the exact number, but yeah, round about the Talisker level. And I think we're doing it more or less about the same now.
It's certainly there, but it's quite light. It's quite sweet peat. It's not nowhere near kind of a Lafroig. It's kind of, for me, it's sitting in between almost Colila, Cohoman kind of. It's that kind of cooked fruits and that.
Yeah, just looking to see if I can tell you the peating level, because I think I have a note of it somewhere. But yeah, there was definitely sort of classes at medium peated. So yeah, round about the Talisker level, maybe a little bit less.
Certainly got that. Reminds me of walking through the dunes of Balmedy Beach, where you're just starting to get to the coast. You're starting to get that coast air. It's there, but it's almost like walking through the dunes. You've got that grassy note as well. It's quite a
There's some lovely notes there, and that's what I love about it. There's a lot of subtlety, despite it being quite sort of bold, full-bodied Isle of Scotch. Once you get beyond that smoke and you delve into it a little bit further, there is some delicate fruits. I quite often get sort of apricots or almost into tropical fruit territory, which you do start to get as the esters develop once you get to these kind of higher ages. But I think it's a lovely dram.
And it doesn't smell nearly as strong as the alcohol suggests.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, it takes water well. I've had this neat and with a few wee splashes of water, and it takes water quite well. It doesn't change dramatically, but I find that the flavors just separate out a little bit and become easier to sort of individually identify. But yeah, I wouldn't say it shifts the flavor profile dramatically, but it does open up a wee bit with water.
No, here we go.
I'll just quietly watch with envy. It's not your fault. My stupid cooker's fault.
I'll try and pour some into the.
Yeah, I'll hold my glass up and you pour it in. If only if it worked like that, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? Who knows? We're maybe one stage away from that with technology.
Well, remember, you used to get scratch and sniff books. You might get scratch and sniff TV screens or monitors.
I saw a device pop up online a few years ago where you could digitally send an aroma to someone that had the same device somewhere else in the world, and I have no idea how it worked. But I don't even know if they made it mass market. But someone had developed the technology that they could actually sort of replicate certain smells from a digital device. I don't know how they did it, but yeah. I'll dig out the link. It was a few years ago, but it definitely wasn't an April Fool because there's a lot of science behind it. But yeah,
that's quite cool. That might work for like Zoom whiskey tastings, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I guess maybe like send a smell.
Send a smell, yeah.
We'll just come up with a name for it. Send a smell.
You should trademark that.
Yeah, everybody else doesn't.
We do come up with some great ideas on here, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Accidentally, we're accidental geniuses.
People farts and things like that, though, aren't
Well, yeah, a group of boys would just use it to send just rude things, wouldn't they? It's just
100%.
That is. I get the alcohol on the palate. It's starting to get, but it's not harsh. It's kind of mild, like a white pepper.
Yeah.
It's so easy. There's more peat as well on the palate. I'm starting to get that kind of chewy tobacco note. It's like cigar. Like it's not intense, but it's like the morning.
Also cedarwood humidor kind of. Yeah.
It's that kind of woody not quite peat, but it's kind of smoky, like the morning after, rather than standing at the barbecue. It's maybe how your clothes smell the day after.
Yeah. It's a distant beach bonfire, the sort of embers dying down. Yeah. It's not right in your face. It's more subtle than that, and that's kind of, I think that's part of the reason why Port Ellen has become so revered, because it's got a subtlety to it, it's got an elegance to it, and really well integrated flavors. You don't just get hit with one flavor or one aroma. There's lots kind of all swirling around, and take a bit of time with it. Go back to it in like 20 minutes, half an hour, you'll find new things. So it does just keep evolving. It keeps opening up and revealing new flavors that then sort of stay for a while and then step back and allow something new to come forward. So, as you'd expect with a high-aged whiskey, you do have sort of layers of complexity, but it's a nice dram for sure.
Even in that 5 minutes I've had it poured, 10 minutes now, it's evolved on the nose, and the 3 sips I've had, I've found something different every time.
Yeah. I think that's why people love Port Ellen so much, just because it has that real beautiful depth, but yeah, it just keeps changing. It's a super interesting whiskey.
So for people who want to visit Port Ellen, obviously you've got like sort of visitor experiences set up.
Yeah.
In terms of dramming at the end, if there's, obviously they're not getting that at the end of the of the tour, I'm assuming.
Well, I mean the tours, we have some different tiers of tours, and there's a entry-level tour that includes several hours at the distillery for very small groups, and that does include a cask sample from a 1979 Port Ellen that's still maturing on site. Wow. And then at the next tier up, that tour, it's more sort of bespoke. We sort of work with the sort of clients, whoever's coming, and design a tour with them. But that does include a taste from that cask as well. But it also includes a taste of Port Ellen Gemini, which is the twin whiskey that we launched to coincide with the opening. So you are tasting some pretty impressive liquids, and the tours are priced accordingly. These are drams that, if you were to walk into a bar and buy them, would cost you £500-600, if not more, each.
Yeah.
We do, though. We understand there's a lot of interest in Port Ellen. There's a lot of whiskey fans just want to come in and see the distillery. So we are operating, I think it's on the first Friday or first Saturday of every month. I think it's first Friday. A free tour where you book it online in advance, and you can basically come in, and there's no tasting involved, because the only Port Ellen we have is extremely high aged and extremely expensive. But it does mean that you can get a full tour of the distillery, the production, and basically see what we're doing there. So there's a lot of fans that want to come in and see it, but maybe don't want to sort of spend a few £100s on a sort of day's experience. So we have opened our doors to the sort of local population and whiskey fans as well.
Yeah. I was aware of kind of a kickback when the tours were announcing the price. There was a bit of social media backlash saying, that's the entry level price. I think it's about £200 or something.
Yeah.
And you kind of sit there thinking, well, that's expensive for tours, but there must be a reason for it. There must be.
Yeah. I mean, you're tasting some liquid that, frankly, if you walked in a bar, you'd pay at least double that. So
yes.
But yeah, I mean, we appreciate that some people just want to see what we're doing and maybe don't necessarily want to have a very high aged Port Ellen at the end of the tour. So we have factored that in, and that's why we're doing these sort of open days, as we're calling them. And there's multiple sort of tours that day, so it's not just one tour that we run. It runs several over the course of those days, and they are free. You can book them online. That's
great that you do that as well, because there will be people like the super fans who obviously want to do the high-end tours, but there's probably just the people that are day tripping onto Islay, want to take off all the distilleries and think, oh, that's a new one, I'll just pop in. So that's
and there's folks in the island whose relatives would have worked there all those years ago and maybe just want to have a half hour or an hour walk around and see what we're doing. So they may not want to then taste a 1979 cask sample, and that's fine. Yeah. So we want to, we don't want to have a sort of closed door experience. We do want to open up to the local population, but also people who are visiting the island too.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's excited. I'm gonna have to come over and have a look. I haven't been dining for years.
If you guys can replicate this, then you're on a winner.
That's the plan.
I just put a wee drop of water in it and left it. And the sweetness, there's kind of custard and creme brulee and these kind of flavors are coming out.
Yeah,
And the beat is almost gone completely, just with
Yeah.
a drop of water, a lot of time in the glass.
Yeah, you may find it re-emerges. I mean, it does. It just keeps shape-shifting and evolving. It's a really interesting dram, and it's not unique to this particular Prima Ultima. I mean, a lot of the high-aged Port Ellens, you do find that. And once you get into this mid-40s, that you start to get really interesting tropical fruits coming through, and even so occasionally a little hint of menthol, which you maybe don't expect. So yeah, there's some really interesting flavors start to develop around this age point.
Sounds good. We're going to make everybody jealous at home. Everybody's going to be salivating listening to this chat about this whiskey.
I know. It's quite rare for us to spend so much time on one whiskey.
Yeah.
Normally, it's like, let's take this and we'll move on. I think
you're enjoying it.
I would love to say it's going to be my last dram of the night and just sit with this in my glass, but we do have another dram.
We do.
Lined up as well. But Ewan, what was it that got you? You've been in the industry for quite a while now, but what was it that first got you hooked? What was? We all have that epiphany moment where we think, I love the drink. And we fall in love with the industry. Some people do it the other way around to get a job in the industry without liking it, and then they find a whiskey. So how was the story of you? What was your kind of whiskey moment?
It's a good question. I mean, I'd enjoyed whiskey for a few years prior to starting working in the industry. My first dram was actually a Lagavulin on Isla, so that was a good start. quite a bold start, but it was a good one. But I don't think I knew as much about whiskey as I maybe even did after 6 months in the industry. But I'd kind of always wanted to do a job that involved a bit of travel. Growing up, my parents and I, we always had traveled to different countries around the world. Which at the time was kind of annoying. All of my friends were going to Disneyland and we went camping in Norway and stuff. But looking back, I'm delighted we did that. But I'd always had a thirst for travel, and I was starting to build a bit of an appreciation of whiskey. And I studied languages at university, and then after graduating, there was a job at Cadenhead's came up, and it was basically a sales executive job, but it involved dealing with their sort of export markets around the world. And I applied for that and somehow got the job, which I'm still blown away by. And I learned so much because it's quite a small company, or certainly was then, and still is to an extent. So the job title was sales executive, but you were involved in every aspect of the business. It wasn't long before I was working with it was Frank McCarty at the time, who was running Springbank, and he was sort of one of the ones who was selecting which casks we would bottle, and I quickly got roped into sort of nosing samples and deciding which ones we bottle, and learned a huge amount doing that. I was also dealing quite often with other distilleries and brokers and distilleries around the world as well, buying casks to bring to Scotland and mature. We brought in some rums, some bourbons, some cognac. So quite quickly, the role became not just a sort of sales rep job. It became doing a bit of everything, which was great. Because you learn so much doing that. Yeah. And actually, one of the things I still use to this day was the knowledge I got really early on, because they said to me, right, we're going to give you this job, but we want you to really understand how whiskey's made. So for the first 3 or 4 months, they had me actually just working in Springbank Distillery, so shadowing some of the workers and basically being a distillery operator. I wasn't left on my own to do it, but most of the time. But what I learned at that point, at a very young age, and right at the start of my career, I still use that knowledge to this day. So it gave me a great sort of start in the industry. I was there for 3 years and then moved to Angus Dundee Distillers, who own Tom and Tell and Glencadam now, and looked after their European and Middle Eastern sort of markets, doing bits of everything, but doing more and more of the sort of single cask work that they did. So again, so using that Cadenhead knowledge that I developed, and at that point, I sort of realized that I enjoyed those jobs, but maybe I wasn't a born salesman. It was much more the talking about whiskey that I really enjoyed. So I went for a job with Dewar's, based in New York, as their USA brand ambassador. and got that job somehow, and moved out to the States for 4 years, and based in New York, but traveling all over the US, so pretty much non-stop for 4 years. And then moved onto their global team as their global brand ambassador, did that for another 3 years, and then moved to Diageo, and that was 13 years ago. So I've been at Diageo for 13 years now, which is great. And the role has sort of evolved and changed and sort of encompassed different brands over that period of time. At one point, I was managing the global Scotch ambassador team, which I don't do anymore. And now my sort of role really is brand ambassador for Diageo's luxury Scotch whiskies. So that would be sort of anything above maybe about 300 a bottle. So things like the Premium Ultimas, some of the high-aged Taliskers that we release, anything sort of above Blue Label on the Johnny Walker side. So a lot of the new releases that we've brought out over the last few years have sort of sat within my remit. But also when we've been opening new distilleries or bringing back distilleries, you look at Brora, Port Ellen, I've been quite heavily involved in those projects as well. So yeah, it's I forget what your question was. I think I've been rambling for a while.
No,
but,
you answered it. It was how you got into it. You've had such a varied career. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's been quite interesting. Yeah, because I mean, a lot of my colleagues in Diageo and competitors as well that do brand ambassador roles, a lot of them come from a bartending background, and I don't. I mean, I can knock together a decent cocktail, but it takes me a while. If the bar's 5 deep, you'll hate me. But yeah, I mean, a lot have come from that background, which I think gives them brilliant knowledge and ability in terms of sort of getting drinks in people's hands and getting people to fall in love with it. And that's one aspect that I don't have, but I think the sort of career path I followed has given me other advantages. So yeah, it's been good.
Do you use your languages still?
No, I was terrible at them. So I studied German language and literature at university, and I studied French and German through school. But no, I wasn't particularly good at it. I got a degree, and that was me basically. I'm learning Gaelic now because my twins go to the Gaelic school here in Inverness, so I'm trying to keep up with them and their Gaelic speaking. Which we'll see how that goes.
That's awesome. Where do you hail from originally?
From Wick originally. So right up in the
north.
Yeah.
I thought I was picking up a Caithness accent. I used to live up that way. I thought you're definitely from up there.
yeah. So Wick originally.
It comes back in every now and again when the odd word is like, you're definitely a Caithness.
Yeah, I've lived all over. Lived in Glasgow for years. Lived in Campbelltown for a while. So I bounced around a bit. But yeah, I've been in Inverness now for the past 13 years.
It's a bonny part of the world.
Yeah, I like it.
We were up there just not long ago. And we met up for a gin festival with our Folkhouse Gin at Ness, but it was the same weekend as the Black Isle Festival, so they cancelled it quite late on. But we had the hotel booked anyway, so we went up. Me and the wife went up anyway. We stayed in Eventon.
Oh yeah,
so not quite up to Wick, but it was nice because we're quite close to Teenach and Glenmorangie and Dalmore.
Yeah, there's quite a few distilleries around there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Yeah, I'm very fortunate, especially when the weather's like it is today. It's great.
Yeah, we were very lucky. There was a couple of spits, but no, we're quite lucky. It's just beautiful. Nice. We've got Dominic on YouTube who's saying he speaks 2 languages, English and gibberish.
Yeah, I've definitely got a wee bit of the gibberish as well.
We all do. And he was asking, I was going to ask this myself, Dominic, so we're on the same wavelength here, but being a Middle East whiskey sales rep, that must have been tough.
You'd be surprised, actually. I mean, obviously there's some markets where you just don't sell any, but back in the day, I mean, Lebanon was quite a big Scotch market, and still is to this day. It's a small country, but a lot of Scotch drinkers. Israel, quite a lot of Scotch drinkers there. And then you go to the Emirates. Yes, there's not bars to the same extent, but there's a lot of high-end Scotch gets sold in hotels. So yeah, you'd be surprised. And also duty free. There's pretty solid duty free markets through most of those countries. So yeah, I mean, it's maybe not the largest market in the world or region in the world for whiskey consumption, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's whiskey clubs out there. There's a couple of whiskey clubs in Dubai, for example. So
I was on the Springbank Whiskey School in 2017, and there was a lad from Israel in my class,
Yeah.
Yuri, which was a lovely guy.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a few Israelis over doing tours with us, and I think I'm not sure if he's on tonight. I haven't seen his name pop up. Ren, who started watching us recently. He's part of the council who kind of examined kosher products. He's heavily involved in the whiskey side of things there. So yeah, and they've also got their own whiskies now.
Yeah, exactly. They've got milk and honey out there, so yeah, they're embracing it. Yeah, for sure. I think there's someone in Lebanon making whiskey as well now. I'm sure I read something about that. So yeah.
It's amazing, all these new markets. I mean, you must have seen over the years in your various roles, just how whiskey kind of spreads to every sort of corner of the. I think, did I read somewhere that Diageo sell like whiskey to over 180 countries around the world or something? I mean,
I mean, pretty much any country you go to in the world, you'll find a Johnny Walker Black Label behind the bar somewhere, and which is great, because that's basically my go-to dram, to be quite honest with you. And so
I've always got open. It's like, if you just want a dram and you just don't need to think about it, it's the one I always just, and it's always at a good price in like the supermarket.
Exactly. I also, it's got the best of Scotland in it. If you want something quite light and quite delicate, there's elements of that in there. If you want a bit of smoke, it's got that. If you want something a bit more orchard fruits from Speyside, it's got that. So whatever you're looking for, you'll find it in there. So it's great, because any bar in the world you walk into, it'll be there. So it's a good staple. Yeah, and it makes a cracking highball as well.
Whiskey. This is absolutely gorgeous. This is yum. I don't know why I haven't had this in my life before.
Which one is it? The Manachmore.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were very sly in opening that one. How did you pre-open it so it was easy to pop?
No, I saw somebody's comment about, oh no, she's gonna have to try and get into the bottle. I was struggling a little bit, but I did manage to get in. I did manage to get into.
When you went to turn the light on, that was you actually going and getting a chisel out to open the bottle.
Do you know what I always do is, the foil paper that it's got the perforated bit that you peel around. I never seem to get it to go all the way around, and I just get like halfway and I've got to like pick the rest of it off. So I managed to get into it, but their corks are really cool. Oh, I'm so bad at this. Their cork's really cool. It's got like a little wee sigil branded into it.
Oh yeah.
How cute is that? But yeah, it's so fruity and yummy. I'm really enjoying this. Not as quite as exciting as what you guys are on, but
I really like Bannockmore.
It's one of those sort of whiskies that kind of flies below the radar, and we've got a few like that. They're actually wonderful. I mean, even you look at Clynelish and Kalila, they're phenomenal brands and great liquid. But it's not big brands that we market heavily, but there's a growing number of people just absolutely adore them, myself included.
I picked out 3 independents and it's all Diageo distilleries, and there's one, obviously you've got your kind of classic range, and the ones that everyone kind of knows and loves, but the guys under the radar, I suppose the Flora and Fauna range kind of guys, your Teenanix, Marrickmores, Linkwood. People clamber for these as independent bottlers because they know how good the spirit is.
Yeah, exactly. And we always have that sort of bit of tension because they're highly valued by our blenders as well. You start to look at your Ben Rennesses, your Dalyuans, and even Mortlach to an extent. They're highly prized by blenders, but they're also phenomenal single malts in their own right. So there's always that bit of tension because we're a single malt company and a blending company. So there's always a bit of debate. Fortunately, it's the same team of 12 people that do both, so they can bicker amongst themselves.
It keeps all the fighting in house, doesn't
it?
You have such a big portfolio of like brands to talk about, though. I mean, with new releases, there must be a lot of retention of information.
I don't know. I've got memory like a sieve, so it's. I mean, you tend to the whiskies that you talk a lot about, you tend to know lots and lots about, but things like your Manachmores and stuff, because I'm never really talking about them that often. If you ask me the fermentation time there, I probably couldn't tell you, for example. But whereas most of our bigger brands I'm talking about regularly, ask me anything, I should be able to answer you. So we've got it's 30 odd single malts and then numerous blended Scotch whisky. So it's a lot to keep track of, for sure.
Manachmore, I think, that's a distillery that provided spirit for the Loch Dew, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, it was, yeah. Which now goes for substantial amounts of money at auction, which yeah, an interesting one.
Yeah, it's not a whiskey I would kind of reach for again if I've had a taste of it. Heavy port cast, wasn't it? I mean, it was just
yeah. I think Angus heavy port and a lot of sort of really active first fill sherry casts as well. Yeah, so yeah,
and that's a coloured bottle. I don't think it's as dark as that.
Yeah. I mean, it was jet black. And not that well received at the time, but now you see it on auction go for hundreds. So go figure.
Yeah, trends.
This one was it a blend or was it a?
It was a single malt. It's called Loch Dew. It was basically black whiskey, essentially. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Spade Distillery do what's a Bendu now, which is port influence, but it's from I think it's Spade Distillery, but it's labelled up as Bendu, and it's kind of almost a homage to the Loch. I do think Manachmore took a bit of the covering from that because when people heard that was the whiskey that was in it, they kind of avoided it for a while.
Yeah, but yeah, it makes some decent drama actually.
Yeah, get to the bourbon cask. It's fantastic. Dominic's asking, he's watching on YouTube. He'd be interested to get your thoughts on the near future for Scotch whisky. I think more growth. We're seeing a lot of growth at the moment. Are we heading for a repeat of the 1890s, 1980s overproduction, or are we lagging behind demand still?
I don't think so. I think for a few reasons. I think now we're in more markets globally, so you've got a little bit more coverage. If one market drops, there's probably another one somewhere else is going up. So there's not as big fluctuations, if you like, in total sales. But also, I think we're much better at forecasting now than we were going back to the 80s and certainly going back to the turn of the century. I don't think there was probably much forecasting done at that point at all, really. So, I think we're, as an industry as a whole, I think we're in a much better place in terms of planning for the future and sort of controlling production to accommodate sort of changes in demand. I mean, if you look at secondary market just now, there's been a little bit of a softening, but I mean, I think that's more of a natural correction because there was some really rapid sort of increases going on, and I think it's maybe just sort of correcting to sort of levels it should have been at. So I don't think it's a bubble bursting or anything like that. I don't think anyone's overly concerned. I think it's more a case of just a bit of a correction, really. So I think the future for Scotch looks good. I think we're sort of still opening up new markets or expanding into markets that historically were quite small, and a lot of the markets that we are in are performing well. So yeah, I think it's a rosy future for the industry, but I'm obviously biased.
You're hoping it's rosy. I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Is there, because a lot of new distilleries coming on the market. They're not going to blending. There's a lot of them are saying, it's single malt. It's all going to be our own cask. We're not going to sell any.
Yeah.
And guys like you look at the Chivas guys selling Glenallachie recently, then Tormore, but replacing them with kind of Dalmunach, because this kind of really funky, all singing, all dancing. Is there going to be a time where blenders are now thinking, well, where are we going to get our whiskey from? Or, I mean, Diageo have how many distilleries? 30 odd? Or?
Yeah, I mean, we've got 30 odd single malt distilleries, and we've actually got 2.5 single grain distilleries. One's a joint venture. But no, I mean, I think again a lot of it does come down to sort of forward planning and really mapping out and working closely with your markets around the world and getting them to put in realistic forecasts. We're not getting people to forecast next year. We're getting people to forecast of 5, 10, 15 years out, because that helps us to plan what we're going to make. I think there are a lot of new small distilleries popping up, and I think it's great. I think it's a good thing for the industry because if anything, it gives us more to talk about and more to to sort of celebrate. So yeah, I don't see it being an issue or a concern.
Mhm.
And then yeah, to your point, big distilleries, Demonic, for example, or I mean Rose Isle, we got sort of a lot of people being very concerned about Rose Isle because this sort of large distillery that we opened, and it's not even close to being the biggest single malt distillery in Scotland anymore. But actually, distilleries like Rose Isle and Demonic are great for single malt drinkers because it takes some of the pressure off those other single malts that they love, and means that there's more of them available to be bottled as single malt,
Sure.
because we're using them for blending. So yeah, I think all of these things that are happening in the industry, I think they're all for the greater good. I think they're all good things.
Yeah, no, I think I think it does even out, but I think there's always, I think when things are going well, people, it just gives them like the nerve, and they're like, no, wait, no, it can't, no, something bad's going to happen. I think it's just, you always just hedge your bets and kind of think, oh,
Yeah.
it must be the same as last time. But as you say, we've got so many more checks and balances in place. We've got so many more.
Yeah. And we are in so many more markets around the world as well. So, if one crashes or has a downturn, there's others that are having upturns at that point. Whereas if you go back 100 years, we're probably only in a handful of markets. So as an industry, so, if a few of them took a hit, the whole industry took a hit, so.
And the politics
in the early 1900s, the blending market, when that crashed, it affected everyone.
Yeah.
Where the blend market crashes now, the guys who are only producing single malt will be fine, which is pretty much everyone. And then vice versa, if the single malt market goes, there's still that blending market. So, yeah, I don't think there's ever been as much confidence in whiskey industry than there is just now.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think even when you look at the amount of information that's available to consumers now, I mean, when I started in the industry, we're talking 25, 26 years ago, there was basically Michael Jackson, there was Dave Broom, Charlie McLean. That was about it, writing about whiskey. I think there's one news group run out of Karlsruhe in Germany, which was operated on sort of the internet version of MS-DOS, and that was it. There wasn't sort of shows like this. There wasn't sort of newsletters. There wasn't the internet. I'm that old. And there wasn't whiskey magazine. None of these things existed. So for someone to actually learn about whiskey, it was actually quite hard to do. So to instill that passion in people, it was much, much harder. Most distilleries, if you wanted a tour, you'd go and knock on the door, and if the distillery manager wasn't busy, they'd give you a walk around and maybe a dram at the end. There wasn't the visitor experience. There wasn't whiskey tourism really at that point, or very little. So the industry in a quarter of a century has evolved massively in terms of telling our story and telling it well. And that's not just us at Diageo, that's across the whole industry. So, I think we've come on in leaps and bounds in terms of how we share what we do with the world. I mean, even if you look at, you go into a supermarket now and there'll be probably sort of 15, 20 different single malts and a collection of blended scotches. When I started in the industry, you'd maybe get one blend and maybe one single malt. So yeah, the whole industry has evolved quite dramatically when you think in less than 3 decades. So I think looking to the future, I think the future looks good.
No, definitely.
So rest easy, guys. Whiskey's here to stay.
Oh, yeah. Don't panic, everyone. Pour yourself another dram. We're all good.
Yeah. I mean, even when you look at sort of the range of expressions from distillers, going back 25, 30 years, there were maybe 2 or 3 sort of age points that were being released by each distillery, and that was it. There was very rarely would you get a limited edition. Very rarely would you get interesting cask finishes. Non-age declared whiskies. They were out there. They were still a thing. But not massively in terms of single malts. Maybe more so in blended. But so there's more options and a broader range of price points now as well. So I think the industry's done a lot to open itself up to attracting new consumers, but also offering existing consumers more choice. So yeah, I think by and large across the whole industry we're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, no, I would say so. And you just see such a variety of people finding the whiskey industry as well. So many people. I think after COVID as well, we just saw so much interest in whiskey and kind of people wanting to pursue that as a sort of interest or a passion or a hobby. It's I think we're in a safe place. I think it's looking good.
Yes. I know someone's mentioned they're reading Human Moss and Making of Scotch Whisky. That was one of the first books I read when I started in the industry 26 years ago.
Right.
It is a
I
bit
love the
time-consuming,
brutal
but
honesty, Dominic. A bit dull in
yeah.
places, but fascinating.
I think that's
Great.
fair. I mean, it is quite hard reading in bits, but yeah, it's a really fascinating read, and
I
a
think
lot of
Dominic's just summed me up.
a lot of the information are still relevant to this day. It's a great book, actually. Yeah.
I'll have
I
to.
do. You mentioned there how there's only maybe 2 or 3 guys writing about it. Your Michael Jacksons, your Charlotte McLeans.
Yeah.
But you look at now, there's so much, and it's not even about whiskey today. There's a lot. You look at guys like David Stark or Brian Townsend.
Yeah.
And people are interested in the past. They want to go back and delve into what's happened, what's made whiskey what it is today.
And the way people share those stories now has changed. It's not just books and magazines. I mean, there's online blogs. I mean, there's Instagram. There's so many different avenues for sharing whiskey and bringing people on that journey. I mean, whiskey festivals. There were a couple. I think Limburg was one of the ones I went to back in sort of the late 90s. But there weren't many others, to be honest, at that point. So it was very small back then. So yeah, the whole sort of ecosystem of sharing knowledge and information has just changed so dramatically.
Yeah, definitely. It must have been so interesting for you to obviously your job's really evolved as the industry's evolved as well, like sort of harnessing things like social media, which I think I kind of feel like the last couple of years, like whiskey and Instagram seems to have just kind of evolved quite dramatically.
It has. I'm not particularly good at it, but there's some folks who are brilliant at creating beautiful videos, great photos, and sharing information, and doing it really, really well, so yeah, long may that continue, because all that does is spread the word around the world of what we're doing as an industry. So it's great.
It's amazing where you find some bottles of whiskey as well. People like take pictures of like the other brand that we're not going to talk about, and like they'll be in a bar somewhere far flung around the world, like, look, I'm in a bar in like wherever, and they send me a picture of Glen. I nearly said it. Cheers, everyone. Send me a picture of Glengarry, like in a top shelf somewhere in some bar in like, I don't know, Africa or something. You're like, that's amazing.
My first ever Glengarry was in Ireland, in Dublin. It was a malt of the month. There, and that was the first time I tried Glengarry. I was like, that's actually just up the road from me. It's 5 minutes from my house.
Yeah,
the bar, you couldn't believe me.
I think it gives Scottish people an immense sense of pride that we're a tiny nation of 5 million odd people, and something we make you can find everywhere in the world. There's not many countries of this size that can say that. So yeah, I think it's something that we rightly should be very proud of.
Yeah, definitely. It's very, very cool. Very cool.
Going to do a couple of hellos. We've got Jeff Whiskey watching. Good evening, Jeff. Glad to have you on. And Keith McKenzie's just popping on. He's waiting for his flight home from Prague, so he's in Prague Airport, and he jumped on to say a quick hello. So good evening, Keith. Glad you could join us. And as Rick has said, it's a great airport distraction. Hopefully, you've got a wee bar in the airport you can enjoy a dram at.
I love that we're portable. You can just whap us out whenever you've got a spare 5 minutes. That's brilliant. I like the fact he's potentially just sitting, like, and our little voices are coming out while he's sitting in the airport. I love that. Maybe he's got his earphones in though, but that's quite cool. We should probably avoid saying anything rude or loud just in case he's surrounded by people.
Watching Bluey on his phone.
You must have seen a lot of airports in your career. I'd imagine the best and worst part of your job is travel.
Yeah, it's a funny one, because I always wanted to do a job that involved travel. I wanted to see the world, and this industry has let me do that in spades. I've added up not that long ago. I've been to 84 countries around the world now, and some of them sort of 40, 50 times. Some of them maybe just once or twice. And yeah, it's a brilliant part of the job, but it takes its toll as well, and it's just time away from family, it's time away from friends. So there is that side of it for sure, but yeah, I don't think I'd change it for the world. It's given me so much life experience that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fantastic to see that many countries. My only problem is I'm not very good at booking, like organizing. Like people are just very good at like booking the connecting flights, or like a bus, or reading a map to find a hotel. I am not good at any of those things, so I don't think
I've got good.
I guess you just have to. Sorry, I've just seen Keith's comment there. Whapping it out may get you some looks in the airport. You're right. Might get you through departures quicker, though. Although you might be escorted, but
I get you through security very slowly.
But yeah, I forgot what I was talking about. No, we're talking about your travels, but yeah, it's interesting to see so much of the world. Although, do you get to see much of the countries? I can't remember who we were speaking to. Oh, it was Paul Dempsey, and he was saying that he always gets there like a couple of days before whatever event he's doing, just to make sure he can see some of the country beforehand.
Yeah, I used to try and do that. I mean, it's different now. I've got kids, so I'm usually trying to get home and see them as quickly as I can. But certainly when I was younger, if it was somewhere I'd never been before, I'd maybe tag on a day at the start or at the end or whatever, just to see a bit of the place. But our teams are actually pretty good at sort of taking you out and showing you around. Especially if they know you've not been somewhere before. They'll like last time I was the first time I was in South Africa. They found I hadn't been there, so they arranged a safari for me one afternoon, which was great. So things like that. It's quite thoughtful that people would do that for you. And you do find that generally people, if they realize that you're interested in culture and music and food and sort of local produce and everything, they'll carve out time to show you their local place, because they're usually very proud of it. So yeah, I think I've maybe been quite fortunate that a lot of the teams I've worked with have really taken pride in carving out some time to show you around. But yeah, if I'm going back somewhere I've been multiple times now, I'll sort of get in, do my thing, and try and get home and see the family now. Yeah.
Well, that's understandable. So have you met I bet you've met some interesting people over the years, though, and sort of celebrities and all sorts of people within the industry, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, I was heavily involved in the Hague Club brand when we rolled that out globally. So I spent a lot of time traveling with David Beckham around Asia and America and Colombia as well. And yeah, we did a campaign a few years ago called Love Scotch, which was really, it wasn't brand focused or even Diageo focused. It was really just trying to sort of get people to fall in love with Scotch as an industry and as a product. And we did sort of rope in some pretty good celebrities for that. There's one, a supermodel called Coco Rocha, who I travelled with for a wee while.
Love it. Just travelled with a supermodel. Yeah.
No one was asking which of us was the supermodel, put it like that. And I've forgotten her name now. It's terrible. But the girl that was in Slumdog Millionaire, I've forgotten her name now.
Not Keira Knightley. No, that's I'm thinking of it. No,
the Indian lady. I forgot her name. It's terrible. But yeah, so we did some stuff with her in India, and yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's just it's a different way of showing up as Scotch, and I think it works really well because there's definitely a place for the tartan and the bagpipes and this of traditional Scottish element, but I think there is a place for that sort of stylized, sort of modern aspect as well. So yeah, these were fun ways to show up talking about Scotch, just a bit different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you involved in the Robert Carlyle Keep Walking advert?
No, that came along just before I joined Diageo. I think it was maybe a year or two just before I joined Diageo. But yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. I mean, it just told the story beautifully. Yeah,
I think it's my favorite piece of whiskey advert or advert, possibly in general. I just love it. And the memory he's got to. I think there is a rumor goes around that he did it on his second take, but I don't think that's quite true. I think it was a bit long.
I don't know if it was his second one, but I know he did it all in one take. There was no cutting, so it was start to finish in one take. But I don't know if it was his second one. It might take a week.
I think there was like a day of failure, shall we say. The next day it was maybe the second or third take.
Yeah, because when he's walking, he's like grabbing hold of he's holding on like.
Yeah.
And you showed me the video.
Putting things down, with stuff. I mean, it's timed, and you know, so it has to be sort of on the dot for each bit. So yeah, it's hugely impressive. Yeah.
Do you know, I went to the Johnny Walker experience last year, and the actor that does the walking on the conveyor,
It's amazing,
I mean,
isn't it?
that was so good.
Yeah,
Like, she
I
was on
couldn't
it.
do that.
Because we were speaking to, well, the guide that we had actually comes from Old Meldrum, and turns out we knew her mum and dad. So she was telling us that, you know, the guides have to work up to like to do that kind of, but yeah, like the timing and stuff, it was just, and then, you know, she was so convincing and so good, but like, you know, half an hour later, she's probably doing it again to that same level of like enthusiasm.
And I mean, the storytelling, you know, and the way they convey that story is beautiful. And I've had folks that have come in with us to do the tour and experience that. They've worked on the brand for years, and I mean, a couple of them were crying by the end of it. You know, they were that emotionally engaged with the story, which, you know, it's a beautiful, you know, it's and it's done so well. And you know, these guys, they do a phenomenal job. I couldn't do it. I mean, I'd be sort of on the floor getting rolled around by a treadmill within minutes. But yeah, they do such a good job. Such a good job.
They do. I can hardly walk through the distillery without tripping over my safety boots, let alone going up a conveyor and putting a top hat on. Oh, Keith's just whapped us out in Stansted. I love it.
I was waiting for a break to say you've been whapped out in Stansted.
I see someone's actually going. I see someone's comment saying they're going to the Johnny Walker experience in a couple of weeks.
Oh, awesome.
I would recommend, if you're going to do that, I'd recommend booking a table in the 1820 bar on the rooftop. It has a stunning wraparound balcony area with probably the best views of Edinburgh Castle and across the city that you'll get anywhere in the world. But it's going to be peak summertime. Book it in advance because it gets super busy. So yeah. Do that.
I know, I wish we'd done that, but it was a staff trip, so we never got time to do that. But I was really impressed with the whole experience. It kind of ticks the box for like a geek, but also like just somebody who wants to come into Scotland and do something whiskey related. It's great just for like a tourist experience. It's really beautifully put together, and the cocktails were fantastic.
Yeah, the cocktails are great actually. I mean, and they're really cleverly put together. It's a guy Miriam who runs the bar, and some of the stories around the cocktails are great. I mean, there's one, I forget the name of it actually. I think it's Airmail or something, but it basically tells a story of there was someone on the west coast of Scotland designed a method of delivering mail using rockets to some of the more remote islands, and the whole story of it is based around that. And it's a blue drink, and it's just incredible. So yeah, the cocktail menu is great. If you go into the bar menu, there's one of my colleagues, a guy called Erwin Trakowski, who worked on that, and instead of just doing it by region or alphabetically, which never makes sense to me because you don't walk in a bar and say I want a whiskey beginning with B, you know. It's actually done by town, and it tells a story of that town and the people, and you know what goes into making the whiskey in that individual place. So it's like sort of hyper sort of regionalized, or if you like, or sort of micro regionalized. I don't know what the right term is, but you know, focusing right in on that sense of place. So yeah, it's really nicely done menus.
Yeah, no, that's
And
cool.
to your point, there is something for everyone, because even this standard Journey of Flavor tour is brilliant, especially if you're not into whiskey, you just want to learn a little bit. But there's in the basement, there's this incredible, I think someone just mentioned actually, yeah, there's the sort of cellar where we've actually got whiskey maturing under the streets of Edinburgh. And they talk you through blending and let you taste some cask samples. It's incredible. Yeah. So depending on your level of knowledge and your level of interest, there's something for everyone. Yeah. And the food's very good too, actually.
Oh, awesome. Well, yeah. Let us know, Dominic, when you've done it next time you're. Is it a couple of weeks? You said
a couple of weeks. Yeah. I was doing a tasting at the Old Meldrum Legion, gin tasting just a couple of weeks ago, and the mother of the lassie you're talking about on the tour, who does the conveyor belts, was at it.
Yeah.
And then the Virgin was telling me all about her antics, and she was I think she graduated in performing art.
Okay, yeah, I think a lot of them come from an acting background, because you need those skills to tell that story so beautifully, and you know, whilst moving and interacting with everything, you know, it's incredible.
Yeah,
it's so iconic as well. The sort of the striding man, isn't it? You know, everyone just knows exactly what it's for, what it means.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most recognizable brands in the world. You know, you think Nike swoosh, you think Adidas stripe, you think the Apple logo. Striding man, everyone knows what it is. You know.
Yeah. I think I've got my photograph next to a few of them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You always got to do that when you get your picture done as well. You've got a copy of them.
Yeah, always.
No, it's very cool.
Everyone's raving about it online.
Good. I'm very pleased with what we've created there, because I think they've done a great job.
Graham was a little bit late to the show. Graham Fraser, talking of Diageo Luxury brands, can I plead for consideration of more affordable visits to Brora?
You can plead, yeah. Again, it's that challenge, because people that are doing it want to taste a liquid, and as soon as you start pouring liquid that's 40 plus years old, the price point pushes everything up. And Brora in particular, when you go and visit there, it's a several hours long experience. The chap that hosts you there, it's a very good friend of mine, Andy Flatt. He's incredible. His level of knowledge, and Scotch is a category, but in Brora in particular, you could spend hours with him just learning. So yes, I appreciate it's not maybe the cheapest tour out there, but it's well worth it. It genuinely is.
It looks like a beautiful distillery for all the any pictures I've seen of it.
Yeah, it's interesting, because with Port Ellen we've gone for a more sort of modern, forward-looking, sort of very stylish sort of setting, and the brand home's very, very sort of beautifully curated, beautifully designed. Brora is much more of a traditional vibe, and equally lovely, but very different sort of style to the experience for sure.
Great. I have just poured our second. I'm just letting it rest in the glass. So what we have here is a second delight from Ewan. It's a Lagavulin 29-year-old.
Yes.
Distillery handful.
So this is I actually had some US media over at Lagavulin in Port Ellen last week, and one of them said this was the best whiskey, not just best Lagavulin, best whiskey he'd ever tasted.
Wow.
And, it's definitely up there. I mean, so this was our Fèis bottling. We did 2 bottlings for Fèis this year at Lagavulin. We did a 10-year-old, which was a really heavily peated expression of Lagavulin. There's actually a cool story about that, which I'll tell you before I tell you about this one. So last year at Fèis, we worked with some of our blenders who went back through various tasting notes and everything from back in the day, which described malt mill and what it was like as a dram. And they blended some casks of heavily peated Lagavulin together to recreate what they thought would be the style of malt mill. Some samples of Lagavulin to almost recreate what they think malt mill would have probably tasted like. And it was so well received at Fèis that they said, right, let's actually go away and do this. So they actually went away and blended casks of Lagavulin together, heavily peated Lagavulin, to recreate the malt mill style. And that's what the Lagavulin 10-year-old that was our Fèis bottling this year was based upon. It was based upon that sort of pseudo malt mill tasting from the previous year. So it's amazing. But this one is just out of this world. So this is a 29-year-old Lagavulin. The first 20 years of its life, it was actually 3 casks, I think 2 or 3 casks. They're matured for 20 odd years. I think it was refill American oak hogsheads. They were then combined and filled into one cask, which is a heavily charred Amoroso seasoned American oak hogshead for the remaining sort of 9 years. So almost a third of its life has been in this really active cask. And it's taken a whiskey which was probably going down one avenue of being quite sort of gently matured, minimal sort of wood influence, and then shifted it into taking a lot of wood influence from a really active, heavy charred Amoroso seasoned hogshead. And it's just shifted the direction of maturation beautifully. So for me, it's got pretty pronounced, really earthy smoke, but it's got almost like umami notes, if you think it's a forest floor, almost that sort of almost funkiness. But there's beautiful sort of walnuts and almost sort of Black Forest Gatto notes come through for me. So yeah, it's a really interesting dram. But yeah, I think it's up there with one of the best drams I've ever had as well. So be interested to know your thoughts on it.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah, you've summed it up. There's more pronounced notes, I think, than the Port Ellen. The Port Ellen was very balanced and kind of complex, where things kind of popped up now and then. This
Yeah.
one, it's like, here's me. It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
it's that more saline, more medicinal kind of peats. But the fruit in this, and there's, it's like there's a jammy note, like a kind of fruit jam, like a compote kind of flavor as well. It's not bad.
Yeah, and then there was literally bottled on site, I think 2 days before or 3 days before Lagavulin Day. So it was hand bottled by Jordan Paisley, the distillery manager, and a few of the other members of the team. I think it was just under 250 bottles. I think it was like 243 bottles or something. But yeah, it's I think there's a few left, not many though. I think most of it went pretty quickly.
So there's still some left at the distillery.
I think there's a few. Yeah, you have to go to the distillery to buy it. But the media that we had over last week, I think they bought 5 between them. So and there's only 4 of them. So yeah.
How much was the?
So this one was £2,500 was the suggested retail price on that one. I can't remember how much the 10-year-old was off the top of my head. I think it was about 170 or thereabouts, maybe 185. But yeah, so it's not cheap, but as a 29-year-old and very, very limited and just phenomenal liquid.
Were you hosting an event for the festival?
Yeah, I did a few sort of kind of luxury whiskey tastings, which was featuring a few of our Prima Ultimas and some sort of cast samples of high-aged Lagavulins. And then between that, I helped do a DJ set with one of my colleagues. So quite a random mix of things, but yeah, it was good fun. And same with Kalila as well. We did a mixture of luxury whiskey tastings, and then I rolled up the sleeves and played some records. So yeah, it was good fun.
Well, I read that you're a bit of a music buff, that you've got quite a record collection. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I'd normally be joining you from. I've got a room downstairs which is basically for whiskey and vinyl, and it's I'm refurbishing at the moment, so I'm up in my wife's office. But yeah, I think I've got about 1,000 albums on vinyl or thereabouts, and probably spent way too much money on hi-fi as well. Mostly Lynn, which is another good Scottish brand. But yeah, I'm quite into my music. Not really a particular genre. I just love music, love live music, love listening to music. So yeah, and one of the benefits, I suppose, of traveling is you get lots of undisturbed time on airplanes where no one can reach you, so you can put on some good albums and sit back and listen to them.
Yeah. Have you ever? I mean, is there a way of combining the two loves? Could you, other than DJing it?
Yeah, we actually, during lockdown, we did a thing called Scotch Sounds Radio Show, which was basically me and my colleague doing Instagram lives together. So me up here, him down in Helensburgh, joining together and playing music and talking about whiskey and trying to match music to whiskey. So it was fairly chaotic, but that was kind of symptomatic of the time. So yeah, it was good fun.
Be a good talking point. So a couple of weeks ago, we ended up trying to match crisps to whiskey accidentally through this chat. I can't remember why.
How did that go?
Yeah. But music to whiskey, it'd be interesting to see what some of the guys would suggest. A favourite dram with a favourite album. And I bet we get some good ones coming through.
When we had Katie on she was at the Balmoral.
Yes.
Not Balmoral, Five Farms.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And she did part of her course, wasn't she? She was saying how she would give people a dram and get them to write their tasting notes. And then they would get another dram, but she would play music in the background and get them to write their tasting notes, and they'd compare it. And it's quite interesting. And I'm a big believer, and we've mentioned this before in the Blether, that whiskey and music are very interlinked in the time.
Oh, yeah. There's a wonderful guy based in the Netherlands. He's also a Kentucky colonel, but a guy called Hans Offringer. I don't know if you've come across him. He's written a book, Bourbon and Blues, but he also did, I think he did rum and jazz, I think, or rum and reggae. I think he did whiskey and jazz, if I remember rightly. It's basically pairing either albums or tracks with different genres of music and different tracks. It's a really good read, actually. It's definitely worth picking up.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And is your Was your channel still available? Can people go and watch that?
I hope not. It was just us joining from our own Instagrams of feeds. But what happened was not at the time, but a few months later, Instagram started pulling them all off because it was of copyright infringement. So yeah, they're not very keen on that. So I don't think any of them are still live that you can watch them. I think they all eventually vanished. But it was just good fun at the time. It was something to do. So
maybe that's what somebody needs to invent, a sort of playlist with a tasting pack. So you buy your tasting pack and then you have to download a sort of Spotify playlist to have alongside it. That'd be quite good fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm doing a thing just now on our we've got an Instagram channel, Diageo Rare and Exceptional, and I've done a piece for them pairing different music tracks with different drams that we have. So I don't know when that's going to start appearing, but probably in the next few weeks. So keep an eye out.
No, definitely. It's it often pops up in conversation, how different sensory kind of inputs affect, how you nose and taste whiskey. So yeah, it's definitely something that I don't know if there'd be much studied into. I'm sure there would have been, but it's an interesting topic anyway.
I know some folks have done some interesting work with yeast and how it performs during fermentation, depending on what music's played to it. So I think a few distillers have done. I don't think in Scotland. I think it was overseas somewhere, but they found classical music worked very well. And then I know that I think it was Hudson, one of the companies in the US. They were playing. I think it was heavy metal at their casks as they were maturing.
They do. Metallica have got their own whiskey, don't they? And they play. Yeah. They mature it to their own music.
I think you're right with the Hudson. It was Hudson, but what they did was they had the subwoofers and they blasted the reverb up, and the vibrations were meant to impact the whiskey. So whiskey vibrated in the cask, and that sped up or developed the maturation. I think was the idea there.
Yeah, no, I mean it's logical, I suppose. Whether it would improve it or not, who knows? But it's fun though.
It would make the tour a bit noisy, wouldn't it?
Well, that's true. Yes.
Well, the malt men have always got their radio going when they're turning the floor, so maybe that's helping the barley. Who knows? Maybe. It's helping all those sugars.
Many a castle of Glengarry matured to the sounds of
North Sound. In it to win it.
There you go.
That's pretty cool. We can just combine it all. If we combine the music, the whiskey, and the crisps, that's just the making of a good night in, to be honest.
Yeah, brilliant.
Have a disco in the warehouse. That Lagavulin was sublime.
Glad you enjoyed it.
I'm looking forward to trying that.
Resample. I've kept it. I haven't finished this one. I've put a wee bit back in the bottle. I'm going to have a look at that later. Or I might take Dominic up on his offer of taking the rest off my hands on Saturday. Depends on how generous I'm feeling.
He is very good at sharing.
Good whiskies for sharing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Very true. And Dominic's very good at sharing.
Comes to a lot of our tastings, and he often has a wee sample. So
nice.
I'll probably keep that one for you, Dominic, for Saturday night.
He's going to hold you to that, I'm sure, as well.
Oh, I'm sure you will. You have to remind me because I will forget. I have a memory like a sieve.
Well, if he's back on Islay, you can always pick up a ball.
Very true. Very true.
Well, he was saying we're going to have to go halves with him. Further up in the chat, I think he said one of us is going to have to go halves. So, well, maybe a few of us will have to club in and just look at a group buyout like a racehorse, and then we can all get a dram out of the bottle. But yeah, it sounds amazing. I'm trying to think. When I went out to Islay, one of them was closed. I didn't get to see it. Maybe it was. No, I think I did go into Lagavulin. I think it was. I think it was Brunhaven that was closed when last I was out there. But I'll need to go back and have a good look around them all. I want to see Kalila's new visitor centre. It looks beautiful.
It's really nice. Yeah, it's beautiful. They've got these. I mean, the whole place is great. The retail space is stunning. But they've got these booths which just sit and look out the windows at the Paps of Jura.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best views in Scotland. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it is. Whenever you see a photograph of Kalila, it's always with the Paps in the distance, and it just looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's great. Nice. Really good.
I've not been to. That's the only one I haven't been to is Kalila. Well, Port Ellen now, of course.
Yeah, Kalia is a funny one because I mean, we very much sort of talk about it as being a really core sort of element of Johnny Walker's where the smoke comes from in Walker, but as a dram in its own right, I would say in the last 3 or 4 years, it's suddenly started to get more and more respect and more admiration, and
Definitely.
it's one I've loved for a long time. It's just flies below the radar, but it's just a phenomenal whiskey.
That's my
There
next
you go.
dram.
Yeah,
I had this to
Yeah.
finish off the night with. So
and I think it's
I've
one
got the
that
same. I think I've got that one as well.
that's the lion, the red lion.
it's one that's really good at a young age, but also really good at a high age as well. It kind of works right across the age spectrum, which isn't always the case. So yeah, big
It's
fan.
yeah, and it's another indie delight, isn't it? It's one
Mm.
that independent bottlers love, and you
Yeah,
often
you
see
just
it in a
see a
range.
lot of it kicking around.
Yeah, but it's good as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one thing being available, but
Mm.
it has to be quality, and
True.
there's very few casks it doesn't work with.
Yeah.
I've had it. I think you mentioned the Lagavulin with Amoroso wine. I've had Colila and Amoroso wine. I've had it in sherry. I had it in bourbon.
Mhm.
There's not much that doesn't work in.
Yeah. It's a good dram for
Cheers.
sure. Cheers.
Dave is asking. Oh, go on then.
We're going to ask the same thing. I'll let you do it.
Don't worry. So Dave's asking, what does Ewan do when he's not working?
I mean, listen to a lot of music. Do a wee bit of mountain biking. I've got 5-year-old twin boys though, so that takes up pretty much all the time when I'm not working, to be honest. So yeah, I don't have a lot of downtime, to be honest. But yeah, in the best
What do
possible
you think of what do you think of Dad's job? My youngest told people at school that his mum just has lots of whiskey in the living room and drinks it for work. I'm like, that's not what I do.
Yeah, they basically tell people Daddy's a whiskey man. I'm not sure people really know what to make of that. So yeah, I don't think they really understand what I do. But to be honest, I'm not sure my wife does either. So yeah, it's fair enough.
When this reminds me of a funny story. So our old master blender, Ron Welsh, who is an absolute lovely man, he had come to the distillery and we'd launched a cask. Mike, it was one you opened, and it was on New Year's Day, and his wife was there, and she said to him, who chooses the whiskey and decides when it's going to be released? And he's like, I do. That's my job. That's just what I've been retired. That's what I've retired.
Well done.
It was such a nice moment though, because he's like, yeah, I just don't feel
She never listens to
me. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's a strange industry to describe working in, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
My friends always say to me, like, your job's ridiculous, because they only ever see the photographs I post of like maybe going to a nice event or a whiskey tasting somewhere nice, but like that's not all of the job, but that is the fun side of it. So I mean, I guess a lot of people must just look at you and think, oh yeah, you're just going around the world talking to David Beckham and going to different countries. But I'd imagine a lot of your job is answering emails and sitting in the office and sort of the less glamorous things.
Oh yeah. I mean, you don't post photos of you at the laptop turning through emails on Instagram, but there's a big chunk of that, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
that's the nature of it.
And I see it a bit more now. People are like sort of leaving education with the idea that they want to be a brand ambassador, which is fantastic. Because it wasn't that long ago. I guess it didn't really exist as a career.
Not really, no.
I guess it's quite hard to break into. I know you do mentoring and things, but I think it's one of those things that happens by chance with a lot of people coming through sort of bar work or whatever, and just working hard and progressing their way up. I don't think it's something you can just come out of university and step straight into potentially.
Probably not. But yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, a lot of folks that come into that role now are coming from a bartending background, and we've got an amazing program we do called World Class. It's a global cocktail competition. I think the biggest global cocktail competition in the world. And quite often we all find that people who've competed in their country and won for their country, quite often will eventually become a brand ambassador. Maybe for us, but maybe somewhere else as well. And so there are people that have come through that route now, which again 20 years ago just didn't exist. So yeah, there's definitely opportunities, and there's ways of getting into this kind of role, and they're quite different to to how it was when I started. I mean, when I started, most people that were doing a sort of brand ambassador-esque role, maybe not with that title, but that kind of role, were quite often retired distillery managers who would come out and do tastings every so often, that kind of thing. So it's quite often more ad hoc, and generally sort of older white men, to be quite honest. And that has changed quite dramatically as well, which is good.
I think were you a mentor for the Drink Exclusive?
Yes. I was one of the sort of first mentors for that. And yeah, brilliant program. It's the three drinkers that have pulled that together. But there's multiple sort of similar programs popping up, and anything that encourages people into the industry or makes people want to be part of the industry, I think it's a really good thing. So the more of them, the better, I would say. Yeah.
I think the Our Whiskey Foundation has been fantastic as well. You see so many of the sort of alumni coming out of that, going straight into some fantastic roles in the industry as well.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, and there's people that maybe often wouldn't have thought they could do that kind of role, and why not?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good place to be in, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, Mike, I thought you were going to say something there a minute ago and I cut over you, but you weren't. You were just politely waiting.
I was agreeing.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was, but I agreed with you.
That's good. It's always a safe place to be in. Just agree with me.
Yeah. I may have to dial off quite soon. I've just realised the time and my boys aren't in bed yet. So.
No, for sure. Definitely.
We can wrap up there. Thank you so much for
no worries.
Staying on a wee bit longer and having a great chat. I was just going to say a quick look at Reb. He's joined us. Good evening. Reb was the chap I was telling you earlier from Israel.
Ah, wonderful, great. Oh well, you can tell I've been to Tel Aviv a few times and Haifa and loved it. So yeah.
He did ask if they are any plans to take back the Colila 18. I don't know if you've got any inside knowledge since we've just talked about.
I'm not sure actually. I'll check. So I had a dram of it the other day, and it is a phenomenal whiskey. So yeah, I will check on that.
That's good. Thank you so much for giving us your time tonight. It's been absolutely awesome getting to know you, and for sharing all those great drams, which I'm going to look forward to. I'm going to track Mike down and get those sometime soon. You are welcome back on whenever you like. It's been a joy to have you.
Thank you very much. It's been lovely chatting to you both. And hopefully see you.
Thank you everyone at home as well for joining us for the evening. I hope we've made your waiting in the airport or whatever it is you're doing much more enjoyable and passing the time. And before we go, let's just ask Kat who is next week's guest.
I knew you were going to ask. I've left my diary in my handbag and I can't remember who it is, but I sent it to you, I think, Mike. Did I not?
I think you did send me a full list. Is it in the calendar though?
Sorry, you don't need to wait while we just try and decide who's on next week.
I might jump off, actually. I'm sure they'll be wonderful, whoever they are.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Lovely chatting.
Catch up soon. We'll send you an email tomorrow morning.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, guys.
Cheers. Take care.
Night.
Kat, you entertain the crowd while I go back and have a look.
I mean, I could just go and get my diary. It's just in my handbag. I sound like such a nana. Let me just go and get my diary and we'll...
Go in my handbag. It's got everything in it.
I should do. Right, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to go find out who it is. You entertain the crowd. Don't whack anything out.
Okay. What do I say on that note? Guys, I would say that Lagavulin is, well, it's not the best whiskey I've ever tried. What a dram. Dominic, if you are over at the distillery, I think you asked me how it compares to the David Simpson. It's a completely different whiskey. Where David Simpson's that heavy sherry. It's not quite, and it depends on what you say. I'm going to sit on the fence a wee bit on that one, but it is pretty banging. Pretty banging dram. You'll enjoy that, Kat.
Oh no, I'm so excited about Chinese whiskies. Yeah, they sound absolutely amazing. So next week we have Whiskey and Witches. So they are, I've been wanting these guys on for ages, so I can't believe I forgot this next week. But they are very, very cool, and I think they do quite a few things for Fringe as well. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, you are going to be in your element.
I know. And it's solstice as well, so I'm like, I'm keeping geeking out. We should have had them on. Do you know, I might. That's very, very cool. So that's who we have on next week. So hopefully everybody can join us for that and watch me being an absolute and utter fangirl.
That's going to be cool.
I'll
Whiskey
try my
Witch is
best.
next. And yeah, so we are going to see how we can utilize the Blether men into our chat. I like the idea that it's quite cool how it's always been whiskey related. It's already in, or spirit related.
Yeah, I like that it's a real word and it exists. I'm just not comfortable with the fact that it's men. Because I'm a girl.
Blether girl. Sounds
The Blether
like
girl,
isn't it?
I know. We keep saying merch. I think
rooms and Blether lasses.
Yeah, we definitely need to get the merch on the go because I'm all for that. We
There's work in the background on that. I'm quite excited about. So.
I need to hear about this.
Yeah. Dave, good evening again. He's looking forward to Saturday night, as am I. I think it's going to be banging. I'll speak to John.
Your
the rare find.
Oh, awesome.
We're going to be sampling about, I think it's 153 years over 6 grams, which is going to be pretty awesome.
Happy solstice, Rick. I'm going to sneak over after work. I'm going to come and just peer through the door.
Come in. Yeah, absolutely.
Who's coming up? Who's coming over to do it with you?
It's John Moffat, who's their brand ambassador. Unfortunately, Greg's not feeling too great, so he's not going to come up. But yeah, no, it'll still be a cracking night.
It'll be very good.
We still have some tickets available if you want to jump in. For those who are local, we have 4 tickets upstairs and a couple online packs as well.
Very cool.
We will say goodnight for now and have a great weekend, guys. Lovely chatting to you all as always. Kat, it's good to see you again.
And you. Yep. We shall do it all again next week.
Next week. Perfect. Thanks, right, guys. Take care.
Night.